Born under the silvery glow of the moon, Cancer carries within them a mythic resonance, the echo of ancient goddesses, the oceanic pulse of intuition, the maternal protector, the sacred vessel of memory and emotion. But within this sacred power lies a duality, and if not carefully understood and mastered, Cancer's traits can become a tempest that threatens not only their own spirit, but also the hearts they seek to protect. Cancers are ruled by water, the element of emotion, intuition, and soul memory. Water gives them unparalleled depth of feeling, a psychic attunement to the needs of others, and the instinctive wisdom to nurture, heal, and shelter. But water also floods, drowns, erodes. When left unchecked, the same ocean that nourishes becomes a relentless tide of self-doubt, emotional volatility, and possessiveness. Cancer's greatest strength, their heart, can become a prison of their own making when they retreat too deeply into themselves, clinging to wounds, fears, and illusions long past their time. The Cancerian shell, that iconic crustacean armor, is both sanctuary and snare. It shields them from the harshness of the world, allowing their tender interior to survive and grow in quiet sanctuaries. Yet this very shell, when allowed to harden over time, can trap them in cycles of resentment, silence, and emotional withdrawal. Cancers have an extraordinary memory, often called photographic in its emotional clarity. They do not forget neither joys nor injuries. This can gift them with deep compassion, or curse them with grudges that calcify into bitterness, haunting them like phantoms from a war long over. Their empathy is legendary, often making them the emotional pillars of their communities and families. But this same empathy can turn corrosive when boundaries are blurred. Cancer absorbs the feelings of others like a sponge, often to the detriment of their own well-being. If they do not learn to distinguish between their emotions and those they care for, they can lose themselves in an endless swirl of drama, caretaking, and unspoken resentment. In trying to save others, they may drown in the very emotions they seek to heal. Fear of abandonment lurks deep within the Cancer psyche. It stems from their intrinsic need to be emotionally secure, to belong, to be loved unconditionally. When this fear is not acknowledged and healed, it can drive them to cling, manipulate, or emotionally withdraw as a form of punishment. They may sabotage relationships with their need for reassurance, suffocate their partners with possessiveness, or erect walls of silence that confuse and wound those closest to them. The very people they cherish most may become casualties of their unspoken fears and defense mechanisms. Their loyalty is unwavering, a divine armor of the soul. Once you are in a Cancer's heart, you reside there forever. But when betrayed or hurt, this loyalty can morph into fierce protectiveness, and at times, quiet vengeance. Unlike the fire signs who explode in fury, Cancer wounds in silence. They may retreat into coldness, deploying emotional manipulation, passive aggression, or martyrdom as shields against vulnerability. In the epic of their inner world, they are often the silent hero, wounded, misunderstood, stoic in their suffering. Yet this narrative can keep them locked in cycles of pain and isolation if not challenged. Cancers are dreamers, artists of memory, poets of the emotional realm. They can build worlds of beauty, love, and comfort for those they cherish. But they are also susceptible to nostalgia, to an idealized past that never truly existed, to dreams that become chains. If they do not embrace the present moment and release the ghosts of yesterdays that were never fully real, they risk stagnation, a refusal to grow, to evolve, to face the discomfort of change. Their comfort zone can become a velvet coffin, lined with familiar illusions and silent regrets. Yet, within all of this, lies the seed of profound greatness. The very traits that can destroy Cancer are also those that, when mastered, elevate them to the status of healer, creator, guardian, and sage. Their challenge is the hero's journey, to navigate the inner ocean of their emotions without drowning, to open the gates of their hearts without losing themselves, to forgive without forgetting, to love without possession, to remember without living in the past. From an epic standpoint, the Cancerian path is not one of loud conquests or dramatic battles. It is the quiet, unending war waged within the heart. It is the choice, each day, to open rather than close, to feel rather than numb, to rise rather than retreat. The Cancer soul is not meant to be tamed. It is meant to be honored, refined, and released into its highest form. The nurturer who heals not by sacrifice but by sovereignty. In the astrological mythos, Cancer is the gateway of the soul into human life, the sacred threshold of incarnation. The ancients believed that through the sign of Cancer, spirits descended into the realm of Earth to be born anew. And so, each Cancer carries within them a spark of that cosmic doorway, the power to birth, to create, to nourish life itself. But just as the gateway opens, it can also close. And when Cancer shuts that portal in fear, all light dims. The warning is clear, but it is not a curse. It is a call to awakening. Cancer must confront their shadows, not out of punishment, but as an initiation into true mastery. The emotional tides must not be denied. They must be surfed, danced with, learned from. The past must not be erased, it must be alchemized. Love must not be clutched, it must be offered with trust. When Cancer rises from their own depths with the courage to feel fully, to love wisely, and to lead from a place of wholeness rather than wounding, they become unstoppable. Their intuition becomes prophecy. Their love becomes sanctuary. Their loyalty becomes a force that builds legacies. In mastering their own heart, they do not only avoid destruction, they build worlds. Beyond the commonly charted waters of Cancer's emotional depth, protective nature, and intuitive resonance, there lies an undercurrent of subtle, often overlooked power, the mythic influence of cycles, ancestral memory, and lunar rhythm. Cancer is not just the embodiment of personal feeling. It is the keeper of time's emotional heartbeat. Governed by the moon, the most changeable and cyclical body in our sky, Cancer embodies rhythm and ritual, waxing and waning not only with mood but with destiny itself. This grants them a sacred, often unspoken connection to the invisible web of life, the forces that bind families, traditions, and collective history. It is within this lunar bond that we discover a deeper layer of the Cancerian epic, the soul tide keeper, the memory weaver, the ancestral voice in modern form. Cancers carry within them echoes of generational emotion. They are psychic sponges not only of the present but of the bloodline, feeling the unresolved grief, the silent longings, and the burdens never spoken by those who came before. In every instinct to protect, in every fear of loss, in every craving for safety, there is often a thread that links back generations. This trait, when unexplored, can anchor them in emotional patterns that are not entirely their own. They may live out the abandoned hopes of a grandmother, the grief of a father, or the fears of ancestors lost to war, famine, or exile. When unconscious, this ancestral inheritance becomes a weight. But when brought into the light and healed, Cancer becomes a vessel of liberation for their lineage. They can be the ones to break the chains, to transmute old sorrow into renewed purpose. This lunar kinship also gives Cancer a quiet dominion over time, not linear time but cyclical, sacred time. They sense beginnings and endings before they surface. They know instinctively when to let go and when to hold on, though fear may distort this knowing. Their true power lies in surrendering to cycles rather than resisting them. They are not meant to force or to rush, but to align, to flow, to tend. In a world that worships speed and constant progress, Cancer reminds us of the wisdom of retreat, the value of seasons, the holiness of gestation and rebirth. Where other signs may seek glory on external battlefields, Cancer's epic quest takes place within the sanctum of the soul and the hearth. They are guardians not only of emotion but of sacred space, physical and spiritual. When Cancer is aligned, they possess the power to sanctify their environment. A room becomes a refuge. A word becomes a balm. Their presence alone can knit a sense of safety around others like an invisible cloak. But when they are unconscious of this power, their environments can become mirrors of inner chaos, cluttered, heavy, stagnant. The key is not in avoiding emotion, but in curating it, cleansing it, blessing the space within and without. Cancer's magic lies in their ability to make the ordinary holy, to draw out the sacred from the mundane. A meal, a conversation, a gesture of kindness. These become acts of devotion in the Cancerian world. Underneath their tenderness lies another underestimated strength: their ability to endure. Cancer does not fight in fire and fury. They endure like stone shaped by centuries of tide. Their resilience is lunar and ancient, the kind that survives invasions, holds families together through famine, carries hope through exile. They are the ones who quietly rebuild after destruction, who remember what others forget, who preserve stories when the world has burned the books. In every Cancer lives the silent chronicler, the keeper of the soul's library. This endurance, however, can harden into martyrdom if not channeled with intention. They must learn that sacrifice is noble only when it is chosen, not when it is extracted. Another hidden domain of Cancer's influence is their relationship to imagination. Not just daydreams, but the visionary ability to build emotional realities. Cancer is one of the most creative signs in the zodiac, not in the flamboyant way of Leo or the experimental way of Aquarius, but in the deeply emotional, imaginal sense. They have the gift to create inner landscapes so rich and vivid that others can live in them. This is the stuff of storytellers, spiritual guides, architects of emotional truth. If they trust this gift rather than doubt it, they can become powerful artists, healers, teachers, and leaders, but they must confront the self-doubt that often shadows this gift. They must learn that their dreams are not foolish. They are blueprints of healing. Cancer also governs the archetype of the mother, but this extends beyond the literal. Whether or not they parent children, Cancers are meant to mother dreams, ideas, people, even broken systems. The mother archetype in its highest form is not just the nurturer, but the fierce protector, the primal source of creation. It is the lioness who defends, the goddess who births galaxies, the spirit who midwives transformation. Cancer must embrace this sacred rage, this creative authority. They are not only here to soothe pain, they are here to confront what causes it. They are not passive nurturers. They are architects of new emotional worlds. In the epic sense, Cancer is the sign of return to home, to roots, to truth. Their journey may take them far, internally and externally, but they are always called back to something essential. They are the ones who circle the globe only to realize that the wisdom they sought was within their own heart all along. But this return must not be a retreat into comfort or safety alone. It must be a return to power, to clarity, to presence. Only then can the Cancer soul take its rightful place not as a background healer, but as a luminous center, a moon in full phase, commanding tides, lighting the path for others lost at sea. So the warning persists. If Cancer does not heed the call to courage, to clarity, to sacred self-responsibility, their gifts may curdle into chains. But if they choose to rise, to feel everything, to release what no longer serves, to protect without control and love without fear, then they become not just survivors of emotional intensity, but masters of it. They become legends not because they avoided pain, but because they transmuted it. And in doing so, they fulfill the oldest promise of the moon, to rise again, no matter how dark the night. In the shadowed corners of the astrological realm, there are veiled dimensions of Cancer that rarely rise to the surface, not because they are insignificant, but because they reside in the quiet, subtle layers of being where only the most perceptive seekers tread. These are not traits easily defined or measured. They are soul movements, archetypal undercurrents, mythic potentials waiting to be stirred into action. Beyond emotion, beyond protection, beyond ancestry and home, Cancer harbors otherworldly sensitivities, primal wisdom, and a capacity for transformation that, when awakened, echoes through both personal and collective timelines. One of the most concealed powers of Cancer is their relationship to thresholds, to beginnings and endings, to portals and liminal spaces. Cancer is the sign where the soul enters the world, and in this sense, it is the guardian of thresholds, the keeper of spiritual gateways. In a cosmic context, Cancer does not merely represent birth in the biological sense. It symbolizes initiation. Those born under this sign, or guided heavily by its influence, often serve as spiritual gatekeepers, even unknowingly. They have the ability to usher others through transitions, from suffering to peace, from chaos to healing, from fear to understanding. They sense when something is about to change, and they instinctively know how to hold space for that transformation. This makes Cancer natural initiators, although not always in the conventional way. Their initiation is quiet, internal, marked by subtle signs. A shift in energy, a tear that breaks the silence, a hand held in the darkest hour. They are midwives of the soul, witnesses to rebirths that occur in silence and shadow. But this sacred role comes with danger. If they do not recognize their power, they may become trapped in the pain of others' transformations, trying to carry them across thresholds not meant for them to cross. They must learn to guide, not absorb, to bless, not bleed, to stand in the doorway, but not walk through it for someone else. Cancer's lunar heritage also connects them profoundly to the dream world. While Pisces governs the oceanic collective unconscious and Scorpio the depths of psychological transformation, Cancer rules the personal dreamscape, the dreams that come from the womb of memory and the whispers of the soul. Cancers often receive guidance, warnings, and insights through dreams, visions, or subtle feelings that surface like mist over water. These dreams are not idle fantasies. They are maps, soul language, threads from the other world. When dismissed or ignored, Cancer may feel perpetually lost, confused, or emotionally overwhelmed, as though disconnected from their internal compass. But when honored, their dream life becomes a powerful force of navigation and prophecy, giving them insight not only into themselves but into the future, the hidden motives of others, and the deeper layers of reality. There is also a silent, often misunderstood sensuality to Cancer, not overt or performative, but deeply embodied and elemental. Cancer's sensuality is tied to their emotional state and sense of safety. When they trust and feel secure, they radiate a magnetic, nurturing allure that draws others toward them like a warm hearth in a cold world. Their touch, their gaze, their voice, all become healing instruments. This sensuality is not about seduction. It is about presence. It is the sacred feminine and divine masculine in quiet union, expressing itself through closeness, care, and unspoken understanding. When repressed or feared, this gift becomes twisted into codependence, or a longing that never finds fulfillment. But when embraced with intention, Cancer can become a channel of comfort, pleasure, and emotional healing so profound that it borders on spiritual. Another hidden current in Cancer's energy is their link to silence and stillness. Most associate Cancer with emotional expression, tears, and nurturing conversation, but just as powerful is their ability to speak through quiet. Cancer communicates through atmospheres, through the way a room feels, through the emotional tone behind words rather than the words themselves. They are masters of the unsaid, able to detect truth in pauses, shifts, and glances. This gives them great potential as spiritual leaders, therapists, and artists, not in traditional roles, but as those who teach through presence and example. Their wisdom is not always verbal, but it is unmistakable to those who are paying attention. Yet they must guard against the shadow of this silence, the retreat into passivity, the hiding of truth, the fear of confrontation. Silence must be a tool of peace, not a weapon of avoidance. Cancer is often tied to the idea of roots, family, ancestry, heritage. But they are also deeply connected to the concept of origin in a mythic sense. Cancer does not merely long for the home they were born into. They long for the original home, the primordial womb, the cosmic source. This yearning can become a lifetime search for spiritual belonging, for soul tribes, for the divine mother or the eternal father. When unacknowledged, this search turns into chronic dissatisfaction, restlessness, or misplaced loyalty to people or places that cannot fulfill the ancient ache. But when they turn that search inward, when they realize that the source they are longing for lives within, they begin to unlock a spiritual autonomy that is rare and luminous. They no longer seek to be completed. They become the source itself. What often remains unspoken in the discourse about Cancer is their leadership potential. Because their style is not domineering or extroverted, it is frequently overlooked. Yet Cancer can lead revolutions, not through force, but through moral authority, compassion, and integrity. Their loyalty inspires trust, their consistency builds stability, and their emotional intelligence allows them to sense the pulse of the people they serve. In a chaotic world, Cancer brings cohesion. In a fractured community, they become the emotional backbone. But for this leadership to emerge, Cancer must release the belief that their power is too soft, too quiet, too emotional to matter. When they stop hiding behind humility and recognize that their depth is a gift to the collective, they can lead nations of the heart. Cancer also holds a unique relationship with death, not in the Scorpio sense of destruction and rebirth, but in the Cancerian archetype of passage. They are the soul who holds the hand at the final breath, the one who keeps the memory of the dead alive in ritual and remembrance. This sacred duty connects them to the psychopomp archetype, the guide of souls. Though they may fear loss deeply, they are also equipped to accompany others through grief and endings with grace and presence. If they accept this gift, they can transform the fear of mortality into a deep reverence for life. They become the memory keepers of what is lost and the architects of continuity between worlds. In the final measure, Cancer's journey is not only about emotion, family, and nurture. It is about recognizing the mythic power they carry as keepers of soul memory, builders of sacred space, guides through transformation, and dreamers of the future. They are not here to simply survive their emotional depths. They are here to mine those depths for treasures, to bring those treasures back to the surface, and to offer them to a world starved for meaning, safety, and connection. They are not fragile. They are tidal. And when they awaken fully to who they are, lunar beings dancing between realms, weaving dreams into life, mothering the future, they cease to be defined by their vulnerabilities and instead become beacons of healing, resilience, and holy remembrance. There exists within Cancer a hidden wellspring of mystical sovereignty, a deep undercurrent that flows beneath their emotional tides and nurturing exterior. While often cast as caretakers or empathic supporters, Cancer possesses a core of esoteric power that connects them to the great archetypes of the oracle, the priestess, the seer, and the world builder. This sign is not merely reactive or sensitive. It is profoundly attuned to primordial laws and ancient wisdom encoded within the fabric of emotion itself. It is the embodiment of cosmic memory made flesh. One of the most potent but rarely spoken of dimensions of Cancer is their relationship with sacred architecture. Not merely in buildings or homes, but in emotional and energetic constructs. Cancer is the zodiac's master builder of psychic space. Where Capricorn builds kingdoms of structure, Cancer builds kingdoms of feeling. Their domain is not material alone but emotional architecture. The crafting of atmospheres, the sculpting of sanctuary, the anchoring of invisible foundations where others feel safe enough to be real. These inner sanctuaries are no less powerful than any fortress. In fact, they are more enduring, for they live in the memories of those touched by Cancer's presence. These sanctuaries can be healing centers, relationships, creative projects, or entire communities held together by shared emotion and mutual care. What sets Cancer apart is their command over emotional resonance as a living force. Most signs use emotion. Cancer wields it, not by manipulating it in overt ways, but by sensing the currents beneath words, beneath behavior, beneath energy. They know the feeling of a place, of a time, of a person, not the surface expression, but the vibrational signature. This ability, when awakened consciously, becomes a kind of energetic alchemy. Cancer can shift the energy of a room with their presence. They can influence outcomes by grounding chaotic emotion, calming unseen storms, or awakening compassion in even the most hardened souls. This is not softness, it is emotional command. And to master it, Cancer must cease to see their feelings as a burden and begin to understand them as instruments of divine orchestration. Cancer also has an innate ability to embody archetypal feminine power, regardless of gender. This is not about femininity in the shallow cultural sense, but about the cosmic feminine principle, the principle of gestation, receptivity, and creation through stillness and depth. Where other signs take action externally, Cancer creates by magnetism, by becoming the vessel into which ideas, relationships, and synchronicities are drawn. This is why Cancer's manifestation abilities are often underestimated. Their magic is slow, tidal, and often invisible until it is undeniable. The world changes around them not because they forced it to, but because they invited it to. Their task is not to chase, It is to become the field in which things bloom. There is also a mythic intimacy between Cancer and the concept of sacred contracts, soul agreements made before incarnation. Cancers are often drawn to relationships, families, or karmic dynamics that feel inexplicably deep, even burdensome. They may wonder why they are always the one who feels more, why they carry so much emotional weight, why they are drawn into cycles that seem older than this lifetime. The truth is, Cancer often carries soul contracts, to protect, to witness, to complete what others cannot. These contracts are not punishments. They are honors. But to fulfill them without being destroyed by them, Cancer must discern what is sacred duty and what is inherited guilt. They must know when to hold on and when to release, even when the tie feels ancestral. Cancer is often portrayed as yearning for the past, for nostalgia and memory. Yet beyond this lies their higher role as timebenders. The Cancerian consciousness does not move through time linearly. It spirals, loops, and senses the echoes of past and future within the now. When Cancer steps into their full awareness, they become not just keepers of memory but shapers of destiny. They are the ones who understand that to remember something deeply is to reactivate it, and that what is honored in the past becomes empowered in the present. Their remembrance is not passive. It is a magical act. And when they align their emotional focus with conscious intention, they become architects of futures rooted in healing, wholeness, and wisdom. Their path is not only to nurture others, but to become the source of nurturing for their own inner child. Deep within every Cancer lies the original child, pure, radiant, wild-hearted, who remembers joy without fear, creativity without constraint. If this child is forgotten, Cancer may collapse into roles of martyr, victim, or emotional exile. But when the inner child is reclaimed, Cancer becomes a font of authentic vitality. Their love is no longer given out of obligation but from overflow. Their creativity no longer waits for permission. The wounded protector becomes the joyful creator. This is where Cancer ceases to mother others at the cost of themselves and begins to birth themselves anew. Cancer's emotional nature also conceals a profound relationship with truth. Not the intellectual truth of facts and logic, but the soul truth that speaks through sensation, through instinct, through knowing that cannot be explained. Cancers are lie detectors not because they seek deception, but because they feel dissonance like a physical disturbance. Their bodies react to falsehood. Their dreams speak in symbols. Their skin tightens when something is off. This intuitive radar, when trusted, becomes one of their greatest superpowers, allowing them to avoid entanglements, guide others through illusion, and navigate paths that logic alone cannot reveal. Another dimension often left unspoken is Cancer's quiet wildness. Though symbolized by the crab, with its protective shell and cautious movement, Cancer is a creature of the sea, vast, mysterious, and untamable. Beneath their need for safety lives a primal, lunar force that craves ecstatic surrender, emotional risk, and the freedom to feel without limit. This wildness is not chaos. It is the soul's longing to be fully alive. When denied, it becomes depression, restlessness, or emotional addiction. But when honored, it becomes rapture, artistry, and liberation. Cancer must give themselves permission to be more than a caretaker. They must become a storm when needed, a wave that refuses to be contained, a moon that rises even when unseen. Ultimately, Cancer is not here to be defined by fragility, sentimentality, or the past. They are here to reveal the indestructible power of emotional truth, to restore the sacredness of home and soul, to model leadership through empathy, to honor the rhythms of nature in a world addicted to acceleration. They are here to remind humanity that feeling is not weakness. It is the compass of evolution. When Cancer claims the fullness of their mythic inheritance, they no longer seek refuge in others. They become the lighthouse itself, ancient, luminous, steadfast, guiding the world home to the heart. There lies within the Cancer archetype a cosmic paradox that few ever fully understand: the dual nature of the nurturer and the warrior, the protector and the initiator of emotional revolution. While Cancer is most often praised for its ability to soothe, heal, and provide sanctuary, what is seldom explored is the sacred rage, the lunar fire, the storm that stirs in its depths when injustice crosses the threshold of what is loved. Cancer is not merely a sign of care, it is a sign of consecrated defense. And when this archetype rises, it does so not with the cold steel of aggression, but with the tidal force of loyalty, legacy, and love turned to power. This makes Cancer a sign of sacred boundaries, though this aspect often lies dormant until violated. Most people see boundaries as walls, but for Cancer, boundaries are membranes, living, breathing fields of energetic intelligence. They are guardians of emotional ecosystems. When they do not know their own boundaries, they are susceptible to drowning in the pain of others, confusing compassion with self-erasure. But when they become conscious stewards of those boundaries, they become the gatekeepers of healthy emotional exchange, capable of incredible clarity about what belongs and what does not. The evolution of a Cancer soul depends not only on their capacity to open, but on their sacred ability to close what must be closed, to shield what must be preserved, to say no as a holy act. Connected to this is Cancer's overlooked role as the emotional disruptor. They are not the fire starter who burns systems down, but the water that seeps through every crack, swelling and rising until the structure must yield. They do not always shout, but they dismantle illusion through 1,000 silent truths. Their emotional depth is a mirror in which others must confront themselves. In this way, Cancer is not only a comfort, Cancer is a reckoning. To stand before an awakened Cancer is to be seen entirely, without pretense. And while this can feel terrifying to those who rely on masks, it is ultimately healing, because it is truth without judgment. Cancer becomes a revolutionary not by force, but by exposing what is real and refusing to abandon it. Another dimension not often articulated is Cancer's relationship to collective memory and cultural myth. Cancer is the keeper of the emotional DNA of civilizations. It holds the songs, the lullabies, the oral traditions, the ancestral griefs and dreams. In this way, Cancer is not merely personal, it is a living archive. Those influenced by this energy are often called to preserve or awaken cultural memory, even if they cannot articulate why. They feel the pain of histories they never lived, or the longing for lands they've never seen. This is no accident. It is cellular memory, ancestral echo, the soul's compass pointing backward and forward at once. Cancer must learn to translate this into art, education, healing, or leadership. For if they do not, the weight of forgotten stories can become sorrow without outlet. But when expressed, Cancer becomes the bard, the elder, the vessel through which entire peoples remember who they are. There is also a relationship between Cancer and the cycles of creative gestation that few acknowledge. Cancer does not birth instantly. Like the moon, it moves through phases. It creates through incubation, through silence, through tides of inspiration that rise and fall. Unlike fiery signs that manifest through sudden bursts, Cancer must wait, hold, nourish. Their genius lies in their ability to bring forth creations that are whole, alive, and emotionally textured, not rushed, but ripened. This requires immense patience, but also trust in timing. When Cancer aligns with these natural rhythms, they do not just create things, they give life to legacies. Their work carries a resonance that lingers, like the echo of a lullaby long after it's sung. Deeply embedded in Cancer's blueprint is a profound relationship with the moon, not merely as a symbol, but as a living ally. The moon is not just a ruler for Cancer. It is a guide, a whispering force of cyclical wisdom. Those aligned with Cancer's energy are influenced not only emotionally, but spiritually by lunar rhythms. They can learn to harness the waxing and waning phases of the moon to plan, release, build, and rest. Their intuition, dreams, and emotional clarity sharpen when they move in harmony with lunar flow. When Cancer forgets the moon, they fall out of sync with themselves and the world. But when they return to lunar awareness, they re-enter the divine spiral of growth and surrender. The moon becomes a sacred drumbeat to which their soul dances, a pulse that reminds them when to rise, when to let go, and when to simply be. Cancer is also deeply tied to the element of water in its most magical form, not just the emotional or symbolic water, but water as a force of purification, divination, and energy transmission. Many Cancers are natural water witches, energy empaths, or healers who instinctively understand the cleansing and amplifying power of water. Their moods often mirror the water they are near. Still lakes calm them, oceans awaken them, rain cleanses them. They can channel emotions into water, use it as a medium to release pain or bless intentions. When they become conscious of this relationship, water becomes a ritual ally, a source of energetic balance, a mirror through which they see their true reflection. Cancer's journey may then involve sacred water rites, healing baths, moonlit rituals, or even the emotional language of tears as sacred release. Hidden beneath Cancer's emotional armor is also a spine of spiritual iron. This is the part of Cancer that survives, endures, and regenerates again and again. No matter the heartbreak, the betrayal, the exile, Cancer is the sign that crawls back from the edge not because it forgets the pain, but because it carries it forward with meaning. It is a sign of resurrection. Cancer does not give up. It retreats, heals, then returns stronger. This inner resilience is not loud or boastful, but it is absolute. When awakened, Cancer becomes indomitable. Their softness becomes steel. Their scars become scripture. They rise not in defiance of their past, but with it as their foundation. And at their highest octave, Cancer embodies the cosmic mother archetype, not as a role tied to biology, but as a principle of universal nurturance, protection, and fierce love. This energy births new timelines, new ways of being, new worlds. Says, you are safe now. You are home. In a world hungry for compassion, for remembrance, for rootedness, Cancer offers the medicine of belonging, not as sentimentality, but as revolutionary force. When they embody this power, they do not merely offer emotional support. They offer the alchemical space in which entire souls are reborn. Cancer is not the background character. They are the sacred hearth around which the entire story gathers. Their emotional depth is not a liability. It is a multidimensional gateway, a source of magic, leadership, and cosmic remembrance. When they rise, truly rise, they do not simply nurture. They transform. They do not merely protect. They initiate. They do not only feel. They lead with feeling as their compass and love as their weapon of light. Within the Cancerian soul lies an unspoken alchemy that shapes destiny not only through nurturing, but through the unseen mastery of emotional intelligence as a metaphysical technology. In a world that races ahead, idolizing speed and efficiency, Cancer is coded with the divine wisdom of slowness, the understanding that some truths are revealed only through stillness, that some transformations require time, and that emotional depth is not a detour from purpose but the path itself. This pacing is not inertia, it is incubation. It is the rhythm of the seed beneath the soil, of the moon's tides pulling at the soul's undercurrents, of the sacred gestation required to birth something holy and enduring. In this way, Cancer is the custodian of spiritual time, nonlinear, intuitive, and intimately tied to the rhythm of the heart rather than the pressure of clocks. This rhythm makes Cancer the guardian of the sacred pause, a space in which miracles often gestate unnoticed. The pause is not absence. It is presence so full that it spills into every crack of awareness. In this space, Cancer teaches the world how to listen, not just to words, but to tone, to silence, to the emotional imprint of what remains unsaid. In this gift, Cancer becomes the world's emotional translator, the one who can sit with grief without needing to fix it, the one who can name the storm behind the smile, the one who can hold space for truth that is still raw. In a world too quick to analyze, judge, and move on, this is sacred work. It is a quiet revolution. There is another side to Cancer's energetic signature often overlooked, their intimate link to the power of memory as an engine of manifestation. Memory for Cancer is not a passive recollection but an active lens through which they reanimate the past, emotionally relive it, and often unknowingly project it into the future. This cyclical nature is both a gift and a potential chain. When unconscious, it can bind Cancer to old wounds, making them live in stories long expired. But when conscious, Cancer becomes a time weaver, able to extract wisdom from what was, alchemize it in the present, and spin it into healing for what's to come. They learn to choose which memories to empower, which emotions to feed, and thus reshape the energetic blueprint of their lives. Memory becomes spellwork. Emotion becomes architecture. Cancer also holds untapped potential as an energetic transmuter. While often identified as an empath, someone who absorbs the emotions of others, their deeper calling is not to carry those emotions, but to transform them. They are natural shamans of the heart, able to take dense emotional energy and compost it into spiritual fertilizer. This transmutation may happen through creative expression, ritual, solitude, or silent witnessing. When Cancer understands that they are not a vessel for others' pain, but a cauldron for its transformation, their suffering gains meaning. They stop identifying with the weight they carry and begin to wield it as power, as insight, as soul force. They do not just heal, they evolve, and they evolve others in their presence. An often hidden aspect of Cancer's depth is their relationship with the unconscious realms, the dream world, and psychic perception. Governed by the moon, which rules dreams, the subconscious, and liminal spaces, Cancer is naturally attuned to symbols, archetypes, and dream logic. In dreams, they may receive messages that bypass their rational mind but speak directly to their soul's path. In waking life, they often sense things before they happen, not in dramatic flashes, but in subtle moods, changes in tone, gut feelings. These are not coincidences. They are the whispers of an ancient inner oracle. When Cancer begins to trust this intuition and cultivate it, they become a lunar mystic, able to read patterns beneath appearances, to decode the emotional weather of people and places, and to sense soul-level truths that transcend linear understanding. This psychic ability connects to Cancer's role as a karmic weaver. Often drawn to people, situations, or families with deep emotional entanglements, Cancer may find themselves playing the role of emotional redeemer, not because they must, but because they can. They intuitively sense unspoken contracts, inherited pain, and generational trauma. The danger lies in unconsciously assuming responsibility for the healing of others. The mastery lies in learning to offer space without sacrificing self. In doing so, they reclaim their autonomy and simultaneously serve a higher karmic purpose, breaking cycles not through martyrdom, but through embodied emotional truth. Their life becomes a beacon of what is possible when empathy is fused with sovereignty. Another facet to consider is Cancer's hidden creative fire. While often known for emotional depth and domesticity, there burns in many Cancerian souls a fierce creative urge, not just to express, but to build living legacies through art, writing, music, and storytelling. This is not frivolous creativity. It is soul urgency. Cancer creates not for applause, but for catharsis. Their art is often memory-infused, womb-like, mythic. They create spaces and stories where others find themselves reflected, healed, or remembered. When this creative instinct is honored, Cancer ceases to merely nurture others and begins to nurture the world's collective imagination. Their creations become emotional sanctuaries, sacred mirrors, or invitations into a more tender, more connected way of being. Cancer is also intimately tied to the astral body and the energetic fields around the heart. They are naturally aware of energetic contracts and soul bonds, those invisible threads that tether one soul to another across lifetimes. They may feel the presence of people before they speak. They may grieve separations they can't rationally explain. This awareness can either burden or awaken. If untrained, it can lead to entanglement. If refined, it can become a gift of immense relational wisdom. They begin to sense what is karmic, what is seasonal, and what is eternal. They become adept not just at loving, but at loving wisely. Their attachments become soul-informed rather than fear-based, and they learn to release with grace rather than trauma. Above all, Cancer is a soul teacher of the heart's sacred intelligence. Not the naive heart, but the discerning, weathered, mythic heart. The heart that has cracked open and still chooses love. The heart that sees through illusion but refuses to grow cold. The heart that remembers the original vow to live with feeling, not numbness. In a society that valorizes detachment, Cancer's great act of rebellion is their insistence on caring. Their refusal to stop feeling. Their defiant tenderness. This is not weakness. It is cosmic leadership. It is what the world forgets and what Cancer remembers. And when they finally stop apologizing for the power of their feeling, they become unstoppable. Not because they dominate, but because they flow. Not because they control, but because they attune. Not because they burn, but because they illuminate from within. They become the tides that shape continents, the night that awakens dreams, the soul who teaches others how to come home, not just to a place, but to themselves.